Welcome to the Wellness on Purpose podcast, your go-to source for impactful, educational, and realistic information designed to propel you forward on your journey to intentional well-being, not just for today, but for the well-being of future generations. Join us as we dive into insightful conversation with industry and brand leaders in the ever-evolving landscape of the health and wellness industry. Discover the latest trends, gain valuable perspectives, and uncover practical tips to elevate your wellness journey starting today. This podcast is brought to you by Joanne's Place Health Foods, your trusted partner in health, located in the heart of Peterborough and Lindsay, Ontario. I'm your host, Marissa Laughlin, and I'm thrilled to be guiding you through this season of the Wellness on Purpose podcast. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast and happy March. I don't know about you, but I'm so excited to be through January and February. It was a long, dark, and dreary season, and now it's March. And spring is right around the corner. We're starting to see warmer temperatures, sunshine, starting to plant the gardens. It's just a really great time of year when that season starts to shift. So looking forward to that for me, for you, and just to get some more fresh air in our everyday life. Now, speaking about our everyday life, what we're going to talk about today is a topic that is affecting millions of people around the world, and that's chronic fatigue syndrome. Now, just picture this. You wake up every day feeling like you didn't go to sleep. You have the weight of exhaustion just dragging you down through the day, no matter how much sleep or rest you have. Your brain fog is so thick that you can't even make a clear, conscious decision. And alongside that, you have constant muscle aches, headaches, and just seem to be very, very run down. If you can relate to any of these symptoms, I'm so happy that you're here on the podcast today because we've asked Jason Watkins from Purica to join us to talk all about what is going on when somebody is struggling with chronic fatigue syndrome. Now, this is a big episode, so I hope you stay for the entirety of it and can take some tidbits of information to better support yourself this year. So without further ado, join me in welcoming Jason back on the podcast. Hello, Jason. Welcome back to the podcast. As always, it's such a pleasure to have you on here and sharing your wealth of information. So thank you so much for coming back onto the podcast today. I'd love to know, how is 2024 treating you so far?
Today is the sunshine. Because everybody that knows me knows we live on the coast of BC and it's pretty gray skies. My grandmother came from Saskatchewan and she said it was freezing, but it was blue sky all the time. And then she moved to BC and it took her a year of getting past the depression. I'm used to it, but it's sunny today. So far, so good. I'm liking it.
So good. I couldn't agree more. Finally seeing some sunshine. I know over here in Peterborough, Ontario, it's been a very long winter. I mean, we haven't had a lot of snow, but we just haven't had a lot of sunshine. And I feel like that can really segue into the conversation we're having today because it does have a really big impact on our energy levels. When we are not seeing the sunshine, maybe we're not feeling as motivated or as positive, we are definitely seeing those mood fluctuations amongst, ourselves, our family, our friends, and definitely in Joanne's Place as well. And more on that, really what I'm seeing is so many people are being affected by what we're calling now chronic fatigue syndrome. And I can't help but wonder, is this going to be another blanket diagnosis that we see across our healthcare system? Is this the aftermath of a global pandemic where everybody was so stressed? Is this a long COVID symptom? Is this that people have just been stressed for so long and now we're finally putting a name to it? What do you think is going on right now within the health care and health industry with this more common diagnosis that we're seeing?
If you just look at, say, right off the top, the word balance. Number one, when stress is an imbalance or lack of homeostasis, where the organism can't quite function in sync with the external environment, the organism being us in this case. So we've got so many factors, as you know. We went through the last 3 years, obviously. That was kind of pushing everybody right to the edge because so many differences of opinion. Opinions became the fight or flight thing. We're not fighting for our survival. We're fighting inside, whether we hold it in or we feel like attacking someone and arguing, or we don't talk to anybody anymore, or we're too worried to say, so we're always faking it all the time. Like, oh yeah, that kind of thing. Obviously, that's completely wiping our energy levels out. Secondly, we don't live in sync with nature, which is what the ancients would say. So when you brought up the weather, is when it's dark in ancient cultures, they wouldn't be going out and doing as much. You would be, it's kind of introversion. You're bringing everything together and conserving your energy. We don't do that. We just keep going. We ignore basically what's going on out there, and you go and do, or we don't like how the weather makes us feel. So then we go and do something like looking at our iPhone or iPad or watching movies that really stimulate your brain to try to escape it, which actually is stimulating driving more as if you were in the summer where you can move around and everything's vibrant. You're pushing out all your energy. When you're stressed, there's more energy going out, but it feels like it's inside because you just can't handle it. And then I think it's gone to another state where a lot of people aren't doing what you need to do to help your body get back into sync, which is movement. And I'm not talking about frenetic movement here or there, but I'm talking taking the time by yourself typically, which is good because you can go within. Because sometimes when you walk or something with somebody else, you might be thinking irritating thoughts or whatever, and that's taking you in your head. So if you can be there, breathe, go for a little walk, whatever, you seriously have the time to recharge, especially when you're stressed. So you got exercise, lack of proper, calm exercise, or too much exercise, because some people use that as well to get out of their head. Exercise, and you can feel really good for a while, but after time, if you keep pushing it and you're changing an age of it, you keep pushing it, you start to actually catabolize tissue in your body, and then your energy level starts going down. So all of these things and more, and excess stimulation on screens, like I said, we're not sleeping properly because of all this. Your sleep is light, or you keep waking up, or you keep dreaming too much. You're never going into the deep stage 3 and 4 and REM sleep, where everything's supposed to help you heal and regenerate and tie all your thoughts together from the previous day that you learned. Then the next day you wake up because you haven't slept well, because you've been overthinking and things. So not only do you not remember what you learned very well, you can also get caught up where you start forgetting things that you did actually have. Because this is the way I explain it, because this is where chronic fatigue can really come in to me, is the mind uses a lot of glucose, a lot of energy. And if you're overstimulating it, say you're learning things in a day, whatever it might be, even different way things make you feel, it's processing in your mind. It's like your desk. I think I might have done this before, but your desk, you have your file cabinet, everything's filed properly, you categorize everything, and you can work with it in life. Then you learn some new information that kind of upsets things or dovetails with something you already know, but it makes it so you are more understanding in a more holistic way. So you have to process that and try to categorize it. So it's like pulling out the files you already have, laying them out on the desk, getting this new information of papers that you have, laying it on the desk, now mind mapping and trying to figure out how these ones go, right? And then when you go into deeper stage sleep, which is non-stress, really relaxed sleep, 3 and 4, that's when your mind processes all those paperwork and starts filing them in the appropriate file folders, tying the new information together, and then putting them away. And then your desk is nice and clean. But if you don't do that, and you don't get into deep sleep because it's light, you keep waking up all the time, or you're thinking, or you wake up you're not refreshed. That's because you're not going deep. You're staying in light sleep. You're not processing all this stuff on the desk. So there's where you not only didn't file the new papers into your files, now all the other papers that you had from before are up there, and now it's kind of confused and befuddled. So you start forgetting names, start forgetting appointments, start forgetting this and that, or stuff that you've known forever. All of a sudden, what the heck? And then you just call it aging or I'm stressed. It's because your mind is not able to relax enough because it's so overstimulated. So to me, overstimulation without the reverse side, which then is really relaxing, which almost nobody seems to know how to do anymore. And that's what the East is bringing back, or the ancient. Helps you balance and get everything back in the files. You can recuperate lots of things that you've lost if you can simply find a way to start relaxing and breathing. And like I said, sometimes that means you have to do that alone because some people you can find the irritating things in that, the stress response. It doesn't mean they're irritating, it means at this current level, your nervous system can't process it. So you're basically disheveled. It's frenetic life. It's worse. Now you've got all this added stuff of judgment and everything that came the last 3 years, all these broken relationships. Everybody's worried how to react. That's fatiguing. Whereas just if you have regular fatigue, it's going to go up and down. And yeah, you overworked one day or you had too much to process one day. That's totally fine. If it keeps on going day after day after day, I'd say even if it goes like sometimes you just overwork a week. That's fine. But 4 or 5 days ongoing, that's when you start thinking, you know what? I think physically, mentally, emotionally, I'm not keeping up. You're starting to fall behind. That's where diseases and everything come with that. So chronic fatigue is like a first process symptom that allows you to see, whoa, you know what? More is coming in. More is coming in. And before I turn this over, I know it's long, but if if you get sick, if you start to notice, typically before you get sick, you'll have a drop in energy that's abnormal. So if you could start to pay attention to that, say, okay, I got sick, but I did notice before, I was like, oh, I can't, what's going on? You have this drop in energy. That's an acute fatigue, but imagine that on a chronic basis for anybody that suffers from that. Same idea. If you don't do something then to help you bring the energy back, that's when the diseases or that's when the sickness comes. So in an acute situation, it can be colds, flus, all that kind of thing. In a chronic situation, it can be breakdown in the digestive system, cancers, heart disease, skin breakouts, autoimmune flare-ups, all the things that will start happening, like accelerated aging, if it's chronic fatigue. And just start looking at the acute fatigue with sickness and try to catch it and just have a little nap. Literally, that can stop you from getting sick. Same idea with chronic fatigue. Try to find a way to relax. And then all the things that could come with that go away and you start sleeping more effectively. I think getting rid of a screen after 6 is probably pretty big for most people, at least when they're trying to get back to a semblance of relaxation where they feel the energy coming back. Long one. I know that I do that a lot. Segue.
That's okay. You answered several of my questions all in one, but I want to digest that further. So really for our listeners here, I think what's important to realize, and we've talked about this in many podcast episodes, is that stress is never not going to be there. It's always going to be something that we are faced with, whether it's at home, whether it is a sickness, whether it's our job, whether it's a change in something. But we've talked a lot about that adaptation to the stress and figuring out ways to help your body to better respond to it. But if we're not doing those things like relaxing and sleeping and moving and hydrating and eating, we are just continually letting that ball roll of stress, which gets us more fatigue. And then that 1 week of having a very busy week turns into a busy month, turns into a busy year. And then, as you said, that's when the chronic state sets in. And I think what's important that at least I feel is getting lost in that translation of, okay, you're suffering with chronic fatigue syndrome, reduce your stress. Well, it's so much more than that, because they might already be at a point where they're dealing with the autoimmune condition or the digestion or the skin. So it will always come back to the foundation, which we can talk more about in a minute, but it's so much more than just, well, what I'm seeing on the other end is we just have people coming in and being like, okay, I have chronic fatigue. Tell me everything I need to take. Okay, we do have some deficiencies that we can support, but it's also like, what is your lifestyle? How are you managing and adapting to these things? Are you reducing your screen time? And I think too, through the winter, your point about going on social media and looking for another type of stimulation to feel anything really, like some excitement or some happiness. And it's just really giving us that negative effect in that long-term capacity, which is something I think a lot of people, I hope at least are starting to realize, but we've become so dependent on remote work and Zooms and all of those things. So it's definitely hard, but we can talk about ways to help balance that out with our lifestyles and what we're choosing to do. And I really liked your point about walking by yourself. And I've actually recently realized this is I find when I'm doing certain things with somebody, it's almost becomes this like venting type of like session where you become like offloading in your entire week, and then it just brings everything back up.
Yep.
And I think it's important to learn how to be by yourself and be quiet and relax and do all those things. But yeah, we talked about sleep, but what other things do you think would be really impacting low energy levels? Again, farther than that week of having a busy week, but when we get to that chronic state, like what are some things that are really kind of fueling that fire that we should know about?
So when you just said, when you reiterate going for a walk, how you can start venting and everything, it's so if we start from there, say that if you're living, if you pretend that you are, they call it in the ancient traditions, blue sky, and then you got the clouds. Or a simpler one is that you are, your nature is the center, the eye of the storm, which is totally still. It's still the space around it, but we're living with a whirlwind around, whirling around us of thoughts and emotions and all these judgments and everything, which has gotten way worse last while, by the way. So we're still in it. And that's where, like you said, going for a walk, if you're venting and everything, that's an habituated thing in the West that think offloading all your issues is going to help you, but it doesn't generally, because you get in the habit of offloading then to everybody. Then you become a person, I don't want to be around them, they're constantly complaining, that kind of idea. But it's, you feel like you're getting immediate gratification, like a dopamine hit, by letting go and telling them why this person's bad and all that stuff. But then you're right back at it, and then you start thinking, like you said, more about it. So if we start from there and we realize that we're living in the world all the time, identifying with thoughts, emotions, feelings, stances, everything like that. And instead try to think, okay, but I could find the space in there that I can still see it all. I can see all of my emotions, all the thoughts, everything, but I'm no longer fixated and whirling in it and caught. Because if you're whirling around fast, you can't even see straight. Imagine that. You're in the world, you can't see straight. So everything is like glimpses quick, and you think you got it, but you don't actually. And then you can't relate. So try to get the eye of the storm, which is calm, clear, relaxed, but you can see everything. And there's a song that I remember, I don't remember the name of the song, but they said, it's okay to just breathe. It's okay to just breathe. And that's why I think this poverty mentality, say you're with a friend, and maybe you don't want to actually vent, but you think you don't have anything to talk about. So you start, and it ends up an event session for both of you, whatever, because you feel like I need to add to, I can't handle the silence. Then it's become such a habit. I think this is important for the whole chronic fatigue, everything else. We're caught in this habit of, we think we have to do. And everybody says this, even in Star Wars with Yoda, right? They'll try, only do, or whatever he said. If you keep on thinking that you gotta fill the space, then you never get to touch that idea of how powerful your mind is, how much energy you actually have right here. So in effect, if you keep getting caught up in judgments, irritation, worry, thoughts, right, you're just draining yourself. And we're disempowering ourselves, like we just did during the last 3 years. We gave up our power, a lot of us, to so-called experts. Then we fight with each other over which expert, you know what I mean? So we disempower. Well, we do that all the time because there's that poverty mentality, the thing that the moment's not good enough, that I can't just relax. Of course, we got to work and do all these things, but at times, whenever you can find the space where there is a space, we tend to want to fill it. But in the ancient times, they said that is the most powerful space right there. It's way more powerful than thoughts, talking, all the stuff we're doing. Is that space of recognition. It's not an esoteric, weird thing or anything. This is right down to earth. If you're in the zone as an athlete, or if you're doing something that you absolutely love and it's timeless and you're right here, right now, your mind is razor sharp focus and you feel as light as a feather. Because you're completely right here, right now, and present, totally empowered. It's not an esoteric, like I said, weird thing. It's about, we seem to have lost that by this frenetic pace, and now we're paying for it. And chronic fatigue, like I said, is a symptom of way worse. So to me, because we have to play catch up now, because we're in such a habit of this stimulate with the devices and everything, and trying to not be with ourselves, I think you need to find ways to supplement that. I don't think a lot of people get out of that unless they can find someone to teach them to breathe and relax. You need something to assist you to relax a bit in your nervous system, because we're all fired up all the time. We're wired for this now, right? We're wired. So then that's where I like to talk about mushrooms. Either you incorporate culinary mushrooms that have powerful effects, right? Like shiitake and things like that, or you enhance it with medicinal mushrooms, like reishi and chaga and lion's manes now, which is so big all over the world, cordyceps, which will then reinvigorate your adrenals. Because now your adrenals are burned out because of the overstimulation in the nervous system. A lot of people say, well, stress reaction, what comes first? It's a mental, it's a mind thing. That's first. How you react is habitual, like grooves in your system, and you've been trained yourself to react that way. So even if nothing like has occurred in the past, you still do it. If some tiny thing resembles something from years ago, you tend to have a reaction. So that would be first the mind, then provoking the nervous system, which, by the way, science does not understand the mind. Consciousness is still not understood at all. In 300 years of hardcore looking, it's not understood at all. They'll admit it's a hard question of science. So then they focus on materialism. So then that next thing will be the nervous system reacts, which then send the adrenals into reaction. So most people think of stress as the adrenal reaction with adrenal hormones that then throw off all your other hormones, thyroid, insulin-like growth factors. So you don't heal properly, you don't receive nutrients properly, can't get rid of waste, because you're basically, your body's breaking itself down to fight, run, or freeze, or fake, put all your energy, oh yeah, oh, no, I didn't mean that, that kind of thing. That's not ideal. And so we want to get our body out of that state. That's what mushrooms help you do. And once you regulate your hormones even a little bit, then your mind might be more open to listening to things like a guided meditation, like doing a bit of yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, going into nature when you hated nature before. Oh, I can't stand about all things, because we're so tied in to this computer gratification. And by the way, if someone can't move, if for whatever reason, right, that you're having a hard time moving, whether it be injury, paralysis, whatever, and there's nothing you can do. A good book is amazing. Some people hate books because, again, your mind is trained to this hate thing because it just feels uncomfortable. So then say you do have a computer. I think I've mentioned this to you. We talked about this before, is you just have a picture of nature on your screen. And just a few seconds looking at a picture of nature can calm your nervous system down. So try to keep it away from you, because this is a stimulating thing. Another thing you can do that I think is this blue light, intense blue light with a vibrating frequency is very stimulating. You can get those, the glasses that you can wear, like looking glasses, and those are amazing. You can feel it right away. You can see a slight shift in color, but that's helping you to calm down. So if you feel like I'm addicted to my device, I cannot get off it, social media and all that, I can't get off it. Okay, first then, do the easiest thing, simplest thing, those glasses. They're cheap too. You can buy them all over the internet, whatever. And some of the good stores have them too, is that you just try those first. Then you can calm down a little bit. I think getting off of social media, I know I was on Facebook just because the last 3 years, I felt like I needed to share info. But as soon as I had the opportunity to leave it, I mean, it's so great to get off that. It is definitely not what people think it is. There's so much censorship and so much of different entities trying to get into your headspace to get you in their camp or whatever. Once you break off that, even for a while, whoa, you can feel that your freedom of thought, and you feel that you're becoming empowered again, because we don't realize how much we're just following along all the time, that herd kind of idea. When you're not caught up anymore, you feel a lot more energy, because we're talking about chronic fatigue here, is when people are trying to sway you and groups are trying to sway you and ideology is trying to sway you, especially in today's times of wars and everything. It's intense. Everybody's trying to grab you, and you feel like you do get caught in. And once you back off and you're not getting inundated all the time, I know I'm speaking to a lot of people, this, but we just keep falling into it, is if you pull back, it could just be a couple of days, literally, that their tentacles start pulling out of you, and you can feel the critical thinking, your mind becomes more open to new things. Yeah, I wonder if that was right that I was saying. And then once you can do that, here's my idea of this. You can't really relate to people, anybody, if that person is living, whirling around in their thoughts, identifying with thoughts, emotions, feelings, stances, because even if they have the same apparent stance as you, it's not identical. And a whole bunch of other things are tied into their stance in that whirlwind. So we're just kind of coming close to each other, not understanding. But when you have a sense of that eye of the storm, calm, clear, that's the same as the space around it, but it can still visualize what's going on, but it's not caught. That's how we relate with each other. Is we actually can relate fully with the space that's free of all the worldly thoughts and feelings. That's where you get all your energy back. That's where you start connecting with people again, truly, heart to heart and mind to mind, because you're in that calm, clear space. You say, yeah, I know. That they say that and they say this. And in other words, you're not tied to anything, like fully tied. So that means people can come in and say, hey. And then once you get those connections, I think we invigorate each other, like mushrooms are interdependent. If we can connect with people truly again without feeling like we're butting up with them in even the slightest way, the fight or flight stress response goes away. We're in that more parasympathetic relational stage. Tons of energy comes from that all of a sudden. Different thinking, different ways of being, everything starts happening. But the thing is, that's actually natural. Without all these devices in modern times, people would have had that all the time back in the time. They go for a walk, go picking. At nighttime, everything calmed down because there was nothing, all this electronics and everything weren't there. Everybody, that was a normal ebb and flow of energy. We just live like this all the time. And then eventually we can't take it anymore. We're still trying to, that's chronic fatigue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so many things I want to touch on, but first I want to say it's important, I think, well, at least when I'm talking to customers and clients, I always say the body has a capacity limit. It has a limit that you will reach likely when you hit a chronic fatigue or like a very chronic illness, the capacity in which you think about things, that you listen to people, that you form your own thoughts, there is a capacity there. I mean, sure, we can talk about crazy things to expand that capacity, but it's very hard to make connections with people. Even if you sit down with your partner or your family member, whomever, and you're having that heart-to-heart conversation, I am sure so many people can relate to being in the moment, having the conversation, walking away and being like, what were all of those points that they told me? It's like they are physically there, but they are not mentally there.
Yes.
And I feel like for me, at least, that's something that I'm really aware of because I think it's a disservice as like a friend or somebody who's an educator is to not have that level of clarity to listen, but then also like remember and be able to connect again. Like those things are really important to me. And when I talk to people about that, they're like, I want to have that level of clarity, but also the capacity to have those conversations, big or small, and not feel like extremely drained or, super fatigued after. So I think understanding that we have a capacity limit and we are not meant to continuously go across that limit all the time. It's exhausting. That alone will put you in a chronic fatigue syndrome. And I think too, when it comes to what that level is and hitting the chronic fatigue is when we talk to people about what the first step is to help get to a place where you can start to make better decisions. As you said, it's challenging to live in a chronic state of anything and then be like, okay, I'm going to change my diet. I'm going to sleep 8 hours and I'm going to do all these things. But that's where supplements come in. Supplements can be that great gateway to help you expand your capacity to start to make bigger changes that are going to have more of that long-term effect. So I want to circle back to the mushrooms. You definitely said food would be a great way to start, shiitake, mushrooms in general, mixing those in. But we know medicinal mushrooms are still a very big conversation and they deserve it because they can really help support so many different benefits of someone's health. So some of the big ones you mentioned, lion's mane, chaga, we've talked on the podcast before about Complete 360 and how it has this beautiful blend of the foundational nutrients of those mushrooms, ashwagandha as well. Now, you guys have come out with a new product as well, protein, with all of the mushrooms, correct?
Yes. Yeah. That's the so what we did with our proteins so that anybody can take it, so they're vegan proteins and they're processed and sprouted, things like that, so that to bring things out. But then any protein, if you take it in concentration, it can cause gases, especially some of the vegetarian proteins. So we add an enzyme called prohydrolase, which on its own, when you absorb it in the blood, is anti-inflammatory just by itself. But then it also helps to break down the protein, so for gases and everything else, and has an anti-inflammatory action. But on top of that, we add so the 8 mushrooms that are in Complete 360, which include things like lion's mane, cordyceps, chaga, reishi, turkey tail, things like that, agaricus, they're all in there with ashwagandha in a really high concentrated level. All of them are certified organic. What we're trying to do with the Complete 360 and the adrenal support, which is focused more on the energetic side, if someone's totally exhausted, or you have the energy to be irritated and worried, things like that. Complete 360 is more, you still can get irritated, worried, too. Those 2 products, adrenal support and Complete 360, are the best, what I consider the best of Tibetan, Chinese, and Ayurvedic medicine. In other words, the quintessence that they've got you back in balance, and they're trying to keep you in balance, yin and yang kind of idea, they would use these certain mushrooms. And in the Ayurvedic system is ashwagandha. So we use the root and the leaf flowering structure of ashwagandha. And then we use the whole life cycle, because they all have different compounds they produce in the fruiting body mycelia of the mushroom. So you combine Tibetan, Chinese, and Ayurvedic medicine together to give you something that's a really powerful adaptogen, helps your body adapt to the outside world. And the thing is, this is interesting how mushrooms became so big, is well over 1,000 years ago, the Tibetan king invited the top practitioners of China in the Chinese medicine, which is ancient, the top practitioners of Ayurvedic medicine, the top practitioners of the Himalayan tradition, which is shamanic, invited them all there, and then they cross-pollinated and shared each other's things. And so Chinese medicine shared the meridian technology, acupuncture, things like that, and herbology with the Tibetans, and same as Ayurvedic, but the Tibetans shared, especially with the Chinese, medicinal mushrooms. And they said, you didn't know they came from Tibet because they went right to the top of Chinese medicine. So why is it? And I think I've said this before, but the Tibetans were totally focused on mind and rediscovering the nature of mind and that open, sunlit, blue sky mind idea instead of your head in the clouds of emotions, thoughts, and everything. So they used things that would assist them in meditation to stay calm and clear, especially at the beginning stages when your mind's all whipped up and all the things you're doing and fighting, whatever, is that to bring it here, but stay totally clear so you could see through the clouds. Almost like you've been stuck in the clouds for 2 months. Think, is there any sun even exist? And then you take a plane ride above it, and there's the sun's been there the whole time with blue sky above the clouds. It's always here. You can always tap into it. We've been trained to stay in the clouds all the time. So we forget the sun. So that's the Tibetans with the Buddhist and the Burn tradition, that's the native shamanic tradition. They're both focused on that. So they use mushrooms to help mind, body at ease. So that's why we use our slogan with, here it comes from the Mahamudra tradition, is mind and body at ease, right there, free and clear. So free and clear of anybody controlling you. You feel that space of, whoa. And then you can actually relate with people that you thought you had big disagreements, because you can see that we're all just caught up in this whirlwind and we're having trouble reconnecting. And so if you're trained to not reconnect with all these devices and everything constantly stimulating, and then you go to sleep, and in your sleep, you're not sleeping because you're still processing all the stuff that were on these devices, especially at nighttime, we're never calmed down. So getting rid of the device, getting a little bit of movement by yourself, just can be simple, a little walk or whatever, combining it with medicinal mushrooms that help you to find that space again. I mean, they do so much more than that with your immune system and everything, but all that, to me, the immune system benefits, the mind benefits, everything is tied in into more indirect effects. Yes, there are direct effects, but indirect effects of finding that center again, free and mind and body at ease, free and clear, the eye of the storm, above the clouds in the blue sky mind idea. That's where I think complete 360 and adrenal support come in a big way. And if you're an athlete, you think you're in great physical shape and everything, you're still pushing your body to the limit over and over and over again. That eventually catches up to you. When you're young and still growing, you don't necessarily notice it unless you have the idea. This is where I think another thing in our society is big. And especially now that you got that weight loss drug, which is a diabetic Ozempic, which has a bunch of different things that people should consider about the side effects. But the idea is, okay, everybody's still trying to lose weight. They try to do that. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that should be a lifestyle thing. I think we all know that. Otherwise, you go yo-yo thing up and down. Then you end up getting more and feel even more tired because you've catabolized your muscle. So chronic fatigue is another one comes in with people that otherwise seem like they're doing really well, but they do this thing where you work out really hard because you think you're burning in your whatever. Then after that, which is a window of about an hour and a half, when you should be replenishing your glycogen, which is carbs, and your muscles have been breaking down and catabolizing, so you need to have an amino acid pool that comes in to replenish that. Otherwise, if you don't do that with carbs and protein especially, your body will start to break down the muscle and other tissues through organ tissue through your body, and it won't replenish the glycogen. So then next time you go to do something, you don't have the same energy level because now you don't have the glycogen in your liver and muscles to give you the energy burst. So your body has to rip apart your muscle, basically. You're aging, you're breaking and catabolizing your muscle just to do normal things. And especially for an athlete, you have to put an extra expense. That's going to keep on going. So you're basically trying to gain muscle and strength, right? And energy. But in effect, by not in that hour and a half window after exercise, where you should have some rest, at least rest as much as you can, a little bit, carb and protein, you're basically metabolizing your muscle, you're aging yourself. So you're thinking you're doing all this great stuff, you're aging yourself. Now it makes it harder and harder and harder to maintain your energy levels because your muscles are breaking down and they give you a lot of energy and body heat and everything else. So in other words, look into that, eating after you exercise, getting rest. Otherwise, you'll end up in a chronic fatigue. So if you're using exercise thinking to get out all the stress, it's great. Unless you are doing that thing where you think you're going to lose weight and all the stuff you think of, not taking advantage of that hour and a half window. Sorry, I segued, but I think that's really important because I think there's not enough movement for a lot, but some people it's still excess. And then they can't figure out, why am I so tired? What's going on? Why can't I make gains? Why is it harder? That's why.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
good.
And I think too, we know protein in general is also a very large conversation right now, and making sure that we're getting adequate amounts, good quality, full amino acid profiles, complete proteins. And I just pulled up the new Power Vegan Protein Isolate with the 8 mushrooms from Purica. And I just wanted to quickly look at this nutritional fact because it's amazing profile. 120 calories per scoop, 2.5 grams of fat, 20 grams of protein coming from that plant-based protein, which is amazing. But as you said there, you need some carbs, and there's 5 grams of carbs in here. So is those carbs coming from the protein sources of it being plant-based, or do mushrooms also provide a good amount of glucose for the body as well?
Yeah, so mushrooms provide part of that. And then I would even suggest afterwards is you're going to add something to that in a smoothie or whatever to give you even more carbs. But yeah, the mushrooms have that, and proteins, when they're not fully processed, have a bit of that as well. Also think about that. The price point on that is huge because now you're getting, except for the ashwagandha, you can't put ashwagandha now in foods, which is ridiculous, but they've made it so you have to go for an NPN. The proteins are obviously food-based. So we've got them 8 mushrooms from the Complete 360 with the enzyme and the proteins. We also, so the price point's amazing because you're getting 2 products, one, and we don't just use, when we say 8 mushrooms, we don't just add a bit of mushrooms. Those are therapeutic levels. Same as our Sensations line, which is mixed with cacao. Those are therapeutic levels, the equivalent of 4 caps in a serving. We also, this is an interesting point, wanted to bring this up. Stevia, the plant, is used ubiquitously, has been, as soon as they allowed it to sweeten. For instance, this is a whole nother topic, but the sweetener industry was basically held by sugar and artificial sugars, like NutraSweet, sodium cyclamate, sucralose, things like that. You couldn't use something and call it a sweetener, like glycine or stevia. Now you can, last few years. So it's opened up the doors in the food industry to start using stevia. Stevia is supposed to be used at really, really tiny levels. It's 30 times sweeter naturally as a plant, and then they extract it. Okay, well, it has a funny taste like sodium cyclamate that you can taste it unless you can mask it. You can do good things to try to mask it, but some people will still recognize it, don't like it. That was the only thing that was really available other than the alcohol sugars. So a lot of companies use stevia in our industry. On top of that, now you look at it in mainstream grocery, they're adding it to tons of things. When you use stevia in high doses like that, over and above what we thought would be used, because we thought it'd stay in our industry, higher and higher and higher, and everything's got it in it, those higher levels are showing indicators in some of the preliminary research of infertility data and drops in testosterone, things like that. So we had that in some of our products. So we don't want to be involved in that because at normal dose, it doesn't do that. But now that it's getting in everything more and more and more and more in the mainstream, that we don't want to be involved in that. So we went for a slightly more expensive and just bit the margins, but monk fruit. So monk fruit is much more pleasant. Yes, it costs more, but it tastes way better and has none of the side effects. So again, we're switching everything in this new protein that you're talking with, the 8 mushrooms, that has the new monk fruit in it. And everything else in our company, we're switching it all, anything we have stevia in, which is still tiny, but we're switching it all to monk fruit. And we're not going to change prices in that because I feel like we just want to try to do something. We're growing really, really fast as a company. We thought we're just going to start sharing some of the things and just eat the margins because who cares? I think it's the proper thing to do, especially in times when people's hormones are dropping, sex drives and that, and fertility is an issue. We definitely don't want to have any contributing factors there.
Well, we definitely appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I think there's so much to be said. And we were actually talking about this in the store about how excited we were to have a swap in that ingredient. There's certain ingredients that we just don't know what the long-term effects are so far. But what we do know about monk fruit, it is a naturally sourced from a fruit. You can get it organic. It has a low glycemic, very low impact on the blood sugar. And it tastes really good. Like it does not have that bitterness. It doesn't have that artificial flavor to it. So I'm sure our customers are going to absolutely fall in love with this product as well. Quick pause in today's episode because I want to talk to you about a transformational online program. In case you missed it, Joanne's Place released an online program called the Wellness on Purpose Program to Educate You last year. And our intention with this program is to make this education more accessible for our community to better support their wellness journeys. This program promotes sustainable and realistic changes, and it really focuses on the foundational pillars of every single person's health: your nutrition, your sleep, your stress, and also movement. If you want to get started today, click the link in the description below to learn more about the Wellness on Purpose program. By the way, it's completely free, and you can move at your own pace from the comfort of your own home. Now let's get back to the episode. So to kind of help our listeners start this process with their chronic fatigue, or maybe they're just in a state where they're suffering from that acute fatigue and want to prevent themselves from getting to the chronic. I know for me, what I typically recommend is trying to get something to help modulate the stress response, which is usually always Complete 360. And then with that is typically a protein powder. So you obviously, Purica has the proteins that are the single with the shaga, with the lion's mane, but the fact that you just combined 2 products to support energy, to support adrenals, to support, recovery, to support sleep is amazing. So we're starting with this protein, getting this into your daily routine. And then from there, what would you say is the next step? Do we add in meditation? Do we add in walking? What is the next step above this?
We first have to realize that This is a frenetic society, and they're pushing, pushing, pushing all over the world. Pushing, 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 do. And to me, I can get into all sorts of topics, but this is a method of control to keep you distracted away from the idea, the simple fact that it's okay to just breathe. It literally is okay. It's more than okay, because once you get a taste of what I'm talking about, athletes know it from when they're in the zone. That's what I talked about before. When, say, you push yourself really, really hard and you want to quit, gonna quit, and then all of a sudden the runner will say, you break through something and you literally feel like all of your fatigue went away, all of your muscle soreness away. You feel like your whole body became super light, buoyant, and you're just moving. And there's no thoughts of can't. It happens to you. But everybody has had that same thing happen when they love something that they do and they're in the moment, especially if you become really good at something, which requires work, obviously, because everybody seems to, I don't want to have to do anything, and I want to have everything right now, this whole new idea, but that's unrealistic. But if you can get really good at something, I don't care if it's making a paper like flip into a funny shape. One thing, pick it, that you get really, really good at. It doesn't matter how simple. You'll realize then there's power in your mind, and there's a confidence in that, huge. And I'm serious. It doesn't matter how mundane or profane it is. It doesn't matter. One little thing will give you a glimpse of the idea of when you're super confident. In the moment, you can completely let go because you have that sense of almost blissful, of calm, clear. It's okay to just breathe. I don't have poverty mentality where I have to be doing stuff and I'm not good enough, all that stuff. In that moment, allow that, then you know that's a taste of the blue sky mind. That's what they're talking about. That's it. Then once you are good at one thing, your mind, the habits change because there's that I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not physically, they're better, this. It just, for one moment, it can end. Then you realize like there is the blue sky above the clouds. Your mind inside subliminally, it catches on that. I can do this. Then one other thing you could try, and again, don't take on too much, just one little thing, physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever, try it. In that space, it allows you to keep dropping in for the appreciation part of that. Because the appreciation, whenever you get really good at something, there's a confidence. There's appreciation, even if it's just a moment, of just totally breathing. And there's a sense of gratitude, which is the number one: appreciation, gratitude, authenticity. These are the biggest things above everything else. Love and joy and everything else comes from that. But appreciation, authenticity, gratitude, you can't try to do those things. It has to come naturally. And I feel like, yeah, try something. Instead of thinking, I got to read, I got to do meditation, I got to do this. If you can do that, that's great. If you're already there. But most of us are not there when we start. So first, like I said, pick a thing. Even if it's memorizing a list of words that you didn't think you could do. 10 words. I didn't think I could do that. Work at it day and night until you do it. Then it's grooved into your mind and it happens and you just can't believe it. It's just a little poem or something. Whoa. And it comes out of nowhere. You don't have to think anymore. It'll just come out of your mouth. Anyways, what that can do to you, for me, I feel like I just want to share this. What that can do for you is so much bigger than it sounds. And then it will allow you to say, okay, I see this ancient way. And then I think your mind is more, it's more primed to want to do the yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, going out into nature, just listening to someone instead of always judging what they're saying. Just kick back and listen. Okay, I get that. Anyways, I think that just comes naturally when we unplug a little bit, whatever that means. And the mushrooms play a huge role in that. And like I said, in Tibet, they knew that. And the Shaolin monks, who are mind-body coordination, it's superhuman. They depend on, again, medicinal mushrooms for a couple thousand years almost to help them get into that zone. And they keep on doing it. Yes, it's very powerful at the beginning to assist you to drop into that blue sky mind idea. But later, it still enhances you all the way along. So you don't generally want to quit it because it's a mind-body thing. And for me, I think it goes right back to my roots when I developed recovery almost 30 years ago. I was never supposed to be a product, never supposed to be a company, anything. I just wanted to see if I could affect a ballet dancer's body so that they could adapt to their environment and their stress load and their workload like a young person does, who just heals so fast. So I think one of the guys on our team, Justin, his VP, he said, I think the whole time you were trying to develop a mushroom. And yes, I think physically, recovery was doing everything for your physicality, all the breakdown, everything that's happened already, or it is happening, to kind of reset you so your body functions more like a youthful body. And then the mushrooms are more getting your whole mind space. Those coordinate really well, the complete 360 in recovery to change that. And there's so many things out there, but I feel like that's what our company's been focused on, is a drive to help people reestablish and rediscover blue sky mind, or the mind and body at ease, free and clear. And I think that's what we're talking about today. And that's going to help you get out of chronic fatigue and everything that starts to come with that. But it can also help you prevent you from getting sick in the first place, because it can work on the acute level as well, where you don't succumb or don't feel overwhelmed in the moment, which makes you susceptible to getting sick, because it's like a quick breakdown. Acute works just as well for a lot of that as it does in the long run, if you can get your mind and body able to process and adapt much more quickly, like a young person does.
Yeah, exactly. And I think too, like, as you said, picking a product, even just pick a product, implement it into your every single day, that alone will ripple through the effect through the rest of your life, to give you that boost of confidence that it's possible, that you can see that little bit of light. And then from there, you will say, okay, what next can I do? I'm going to learn something new. I'm going to even just challenge myself to be off my phone by 6 p.m. That even trying to do less could be that thing that you're trying to perfect.
You know what? What you just said, even better. And what you just said too is how a lot of people don't, they feel like they can't stick with something, but that's the mind telling them they don't want to stick with it, or I can't stick with it. What you just said is take one supplement and start taking it every day. A lot of people think that's a huge accomplishment because they never thought they would be able to stick with something. And especially when they start seeing the benefits. But you're exactly right, is the less is more idea, which I feel like we all know that's true, but but that whirlwind part of our mind, it doesn't want to accept and embrace the wiser, deep eye of the storm idea, because it feels once it lets go into that, what am I for then? What am I for? The monkey mind? What do I have? Yeah, you're not really for a lot other than entertain view. So the eye of the storm is super powerful. And what you just said is being able to stick with something, let go of something. Letting go obviously is essential. Let go, let go, let go. I think that's, by the way, the quintessence of all these ancient teachings is to just let go. To just let go. My teacher's teacher, who's also my teacher of Tibet, he said, the one line says is just let go and go where no mind goes. Just let go and go where no mind goes. The idea that the minding is the whirlwind, and to go beyond that to a pure awareness idea, which again, it doesn't have to be esoteric. It's just like a big mind. Like the nature of mind is big, expansive, and adapts really easily because it's so open, but super clear. Not so open that you just let people walk. That's not what I'm talking about. So open that you can resolve situations in circumstance really quickly and adapt to them where they don't feel like a threat anymore, because you don't feel that poverty. You feel empowered again. So you know you're meant to be in the world. Here now, it's open. And again, back to things, whatever you can do to assist you to relax back into that nature of mind that we all have is huge. But a lot of us don't know that it ever exists. And if we can't sleep, it makes it worse because we're still even more buzzed out. And now we feel like we're losing our memory and all that kind of thing. So again, back to things in the supplements, like you're saying at the store at Joanne's too, it's just find ways to deal with any physical pains and things that you have, digestive problems, everything that's come with its skin, obviously. And there's powerful things. That's what we develop recovery for, all the physical things, all over your body. But then anything to assist you. And even tease nut that you have there, Like we did sensation for that, but all the different teas to get you into a ritual space of relaxing and just being able to sit with the tea instead of going on the computer or that or talking on social media, to sit and every day do that. Sit with a cup of tea. That's huge. It'll start to help you get in that. Sorry, I go off on these tangents. Ugh.
No, but it's true. Like that's the thing is we're so conditioned to squeeze all of these things in on the to-do list and we see that that is a success level. Like we've check. We've done all of those things. We might be lacking like 10 hours of sleep a week, or we might be lacking nutritional consumption, but like we got this done. So we'll
Yeah.
figure this out secondary, which is I do see that shift coming. People are starting to prioritize their health. They're starting to budget more for health, natural health products, and they're just being aware that they are the ones that are in control of their own health, and they are responsible for making the changes. So, yeah, I just think this, I'm so excited to try this new protein with all of the 8 mushrooms. Again, what we know is we want to see people make changes, but we want also to be something that's easy for them to use in their everyday so they can keep with that routine. So the fact that this has the protein aspect, but also all the mushrooms are great. So happy to see that roll out in our store. It's going on sale this month for March. But I have to challenge you to something, Jason. This has 8 mushrooms in here, and I want you to very quickly, I'm going to name off each mushroom, and you are only allowed to say one word associated with that mushroom. What's the number one thing that that mushroom is going to support? But you only get one word per mushroom, okay?
This would be good. So I'm normally in the big picture, so this would be challenging, maybe.
Okay. Shaga,
That's stress, long-term stress.
lion's mane,
Mind,
cordyceps,
adrenals and lungs, adrenals.
red reishi,
Chill.
shiitake.
Well, that one's the word that comes to my mind. You're not supposed to say it. So let's see. Serious immune problem.
Okay. Maitake.
Blood sugar.
Okay. Turkey tail.
That word again. That word, the C word that you're not supposed to talk about.
Okay.
There's lots of research there. Yeah.
Okay. And then how do you pronounce the last one? Argulus?
Agaricus.
Yeah.
Agaricus. I think I would focus on liver support for agaricus.
Okay. I'm sure that was very hard for you to name off, but what we can say in summary of that is that these mushrooms, especially working together, support the entire body. It is a holistic support system. And although you named off, shaga and lion's mane and each of those things, brain, they all work synergistically together to find that balance in the body. And that's what's so amazing about medicinal mushrooms, and that I'm so, grateful and so much support behind Purica and these blends, because they just have so many benefits. And it can really support people who have more than just one chronic illness and they're trying to figure out where to start, which is so helpful for our community.
Makes it easy. Like recovery with physical, you don't just whatever you have physical, just try it. You're going to see something. And same as with the mushrooms in combo, like Complete 360 or Adrenal or Immune 7, is that you have that idea that they're synergistically working, especially for stress and immunity. All mushrooms have that ability to enhance your ability to cope with stress, adapt, not stimulate, but enhance it for stress and for immune system, which is tied to stress. When you're stressed, your immune system plummets or gets all dysregulated for autoimmunity, things like that. Yeah, so that idea makes it simple. Take
Yeah.
a mushroom blend. And if you read about a mushroom and it says that you need to take like 3 grams of this mushroom, right? And then you look at a formula and it only has 500 milligrams or whatever of that mushroom, and say, well, that doesn't have enough of that mushroom. But that's like Marissa, you're just saying, is that if you combine mushrooms, they synergize, they're synergistic, so that 500 milligrams with then a whole bunch of other mushrooms at that same level, they all have those immune benefits. They all have that stress relieving benefit. Some are more focused than others on certain parameters, but together you don't need near the same dose. And you could add more if you feel like it, because you really are tied to that mushroom and read a lot about it. Add more, but realistically, it's going to be superfluous because you already have a combo that does all those things and way more. And that's why it's better to take a combo of mushrooms. It makes it, number one, simpler, but also it's working, like you said, in overall effects that are more powerful than one alone.
Yeah, absolutely. And for our listeners, although we talked about chronic fatigue, but some other products were recommended in this episode, we've talked about recovery, we've talked about reishi, we've talked about single mushrooms. And for our listeners, I will link all those previous episodes that Jason and I have talked on in our description below for you guys to check out. But Jason, I could talk for hours with you, but I want to thank you so much for joining me to talk to our community about chronic fatigue and what is the great, first step to addressing that and supporting everyone's general energy levels overall as we move through the next season from winter to spring. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Marissa.
Thank you for joining us for another insightful episode of the Wellness on Purpose podcast. We hope you found the information valuable and inspiring to support you along your wellness journey. Before we go, a quick reminder. The content shared in this podcast is for educational purposes only. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, it's important to remember that everyone's health journey is unique. We strongly recommend consulting with your healthcare professional or a qualified health practitioner for personalized advice tailored to your specific needs and circumstances. Your well-being is a priority, and speaking to a healthcare professional ensures that you receive guidance that best aligns with your individualized health goals. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, please reach out to us through our website. That's all for now. I hope you stay well, stay informed, and remember, your health is your greatest wealth. Until next time, take care.